Shut up and sit down.
I'm gonna pack my wife and kids. I'm gonna hit that western road. I'm gonna hit that Oregon Trail. It's coming fall.
Before we start this battle, could you pee in this cup? I want to make sure you're clean before I mop you up. You think you're a real biker? You share your trail with cars. Go ride your dinky little bike to the nearest juice bar. Oh, cute, you ride your bike to work. My grams could do that. I'll be doing double backflips while you measure body fat. You ride your bike down roads nowhere. See if I care. You don't have enough skills.
Salutations. You are about to listen to the Dialed Podcast with Matt LeGrand, Evan Price, Lance Hepler, and Jake Von During. What could go wrong? Here are your words of wisdom for the day. Criticism, like rain, should be gentle enough to nourish a man's growth without destroying his roots. Now, let me make it rain on these chuckleheads.
Oh, you're getting mad. You're void raging, bro. You must be running low on your daily EPO. Has anyone told you you look dumb in that hat? You have less hair on your body than a naked mole rat. I love being hairless because it makes me super fast. You can take your 8 inches and shove it up your...
Oh, wait, you gonna fight me? You wanna fight? Come on. Wow! Come on! Come at me, bro! Come on!
What is up, ladies and gentlemen of the internet? You guys are suffering through another episode of the Dialed Podcast. I am your special guest host, Matt LeGrand, and I'm here with one Jake Von During. Jake, how are you?
Doing well. How are you, Matt?
Good. Absolutely fantastic. To his right is the legendary, the amicable, the lovely Lance Romance. Lance, how are you?
I am ghosting today. Just a fraction of myself is here as Lance Romance.
Yeah. Fraction. The other fraction is left out on the gravels, and I'm looking forward to hearing all about that sure.
We'll talk.
To his right, Mr. Evan Price, the workhorse of the Dialed Podcast. How are you? True story.
Pretty good. How many times did this intro take us?
This is number 37, and we finally nailed it.
Matt's a slight perfectionist with his intros.
Yep. All right, gentlemen, I would love to hear a little bit of your back pedal, if possible. Jake, do you have anything for us?
Sure. Yeah, we had some of us here at this table had a little race on Monday night, the short track. Portland International Raceway's short track. So we went out and did a little race, and I got second place. It was good.
Wow.
Yeah, it was a tough race. I kind of sat in a little too much in the beginning, and kind of started dealing with some lap traffic as Danny Weichel kind of slipped away from us. He was running fast, though. Not to take anything away from him. If I had one more lap, just one more lap, I think I could have caught him. There's just too many people tiptoeing through these technical sections that I was getting stuck behind, just like pulling my hair out. But it is what it is. That's bike racing. So.
He had a pretty bad cold the week before.
He did, yeah,
and he was feeling good last week. So
and I think
cool.
He had it out for all of us after not getting his win. So we'll go chase him around the track again tonight and see if we can figure him out. So
we were at like lap 2, and I'm right on Jake's wheel, and I'm like, Jake, Danny is getting away. Go! But we couldn't catch him.
Yeah, Lance kept screaming at me from the.
I kept screaming at him every time he'd pass me.
Not exactly a lot of
Go
time
get him,
to drag
Jake!
Somebody in.
No.
And then I ended up riding on the trainer a bit more throughout the course of the week to give my shoulder a rest.
Yeah.
That sucks. I hate having to go through that again. But that rest, I think, is paying off because I'm starting to feel a little bit better. And this past weekend went camping with my family up at Trillium Lake, which was incredible. Absolute blast up there with the family. Did some hiking, fishing, and a little bit of bike riding up down
photography.
A little bit of photography as well. Haven't had a chance to edit the pictures yet.
I was going to ask if you had a nice landscape photo for me.
Will soon. Yeah, I've had a couple that turned out pretty sharp.
Nice. I'm excited about that.
And just had a blast. It was a nice week, and I'm tired right now, which I shouldn't be, but I'm tired. But I'm hopefully going to have a little bit more energy for some bike racing tonight.
Well, we missed you this weekend for sure.
Yeah.
And I don't have much of a back pedal because I would prefer Evan to do my back pedal for me. Evan, how was your week?
Boy,
any interesting rides?
So I'll start with the non-ride stuff, and then I will back pedal for both me and Matt.
Perfect.
In a funny little story that we have. So this weekend, pretty normal training week for me. Just kind of getting back into a training block. So nothing too exciting there. But
did you crack 20 hours or?
I was right at 20 hours.
Okay.
So these next 5 weeks will be over 20. Just plugging along, basically. But I was dog babysitting this week.
Doggy sitting, huh?
Doggy sitting, as one may call it, yes. A little puddin' jack. Have you guys ever seen these dogs before?
I don't even know what that is.
It's like a Jack
I know
Russell.
what a pudding snack is.
Yeah. So it's
Similar.
Puddin,
Very similar.
I believe. Yeah. So it was her name was Bella, and she's adorable. She's this little Jack Russell, but puddin' I think means like disfigured is what it means, but just like proportionally they're very different to a normal Jack Russell. So she's got like very short legs. But she's the cutest little, like, quickest little dog you'll ever see, and she can jump like 4 times her height. It's incredible.
When you started dragging her around the track at sub 5 minute pace, like
I
how
don't know.
long did she last before she started just dragging behind
If
the
she
leash?
was jumping the entire time,
she'd be
she
fine.
could probably do it. But yeah, running, she's quick, but like hiking wise, she would get a little bit tired apparently. But like, I mean, this dog's jumping ability was incredible, and she loves stairs. That was the funniest thing.
That is funny.
It was like a cyclist that was built purely for climbing. Like the dog would just go upstairs and up grades very, very quickly. But yeah, that was really the main focus of my weekend was the dog. But on Saturday, Matt and I met up for a fun ride. It was me, Matt, David, and our buddy Nate.
And Alan Plank.
And Alan Plank was there too, yeah. And we're doing a workout that I'm pretty much going to be doing through the rest of the season each weekend, which is we have we talk about Larch Mountain quite a bit on this podcast. The first section of Larch is Powell Road.
Okay, so you're talking about the Washington Larch.
The Washington Larch, yes.
Gotcha.
We always have to preface that. This is the Washington side Larch. And so that first section of the climb, Powell Road, is pretty surgy. Yeah, steep and surgy at sections, which makes it a really good, 6 minute effort usually. Somewhere around 6
For me,
minutes.
it's an hour and a half.
Okay, so about 6 minutes, about 6 minute effort. And if you go down the descent and loop back around, you give yourself about 1 to 2 minutes rest in between because it's a very fast descent coming down. And it works very, very well for if you're just looking for threshold repeats. So Saturday, me, David, and Alan go out there. We get 5 of them in, and then we meet up with Nate and Matt.
Yep.
And now we're just going to climb all the way up Larch. So we climb up Larch, and we get to the top, which is an intersection where you can go, what is it, Matt? Left to the correctional facility,
Yep.
or right down a gravel road.
Yeah.
Or you can turn around and descend back, which is the correct option.
The
But-
4-way stop, right? And you have
Yeah.
gravel road, or correction facility,
Yeah.
or go back the way you came.
Beautiful
Which is-
climb,
yeah.
too. I really
Yeah,
enjoyed
it
that
is. It was
that ride.
I
Yeah.
felt like I was pushing hard.
Oh
so.
yeah, it was a fun ride. Everybody is doing well riding, so we had
Yeah.
we had a good pace going up, and we get to the top, and this guy pulls up in a truck next to us.
Young gentleman.
Honestly, how young would you say you think he is?
Like, your question if he should be driving or not.
He was smoking a cigarette. I honestly wanted to ask him. I was like, I'm pretty sure you're not 18.
Yeah.
You do not look 18. And he's got his younger brother in the car in the seat next to him.
When he stuck
Who's all of 9.
when he kind of like stuck his cigarette out the window and kind of like flicked it at us or
I
whatever.
actually laughed at him.
I was
Like, I
like,
had to
I was like,
laugh.
wait a minute, because I wasn't sure what was going on, and I was like, wait a minute, this guy's not.
There's
cool.
virtually no traffic out there, correct?
No.
There's like almost no cars.
He was able to just stop in the middle of the intersection to
Yeah.
have a conversation with us.
Yeah, which made it very awkward because there's no other cars around. It's just us and this 15, maybe 16. Like he just got his license last week, kid, with his 9-year-old brother sitting next to him.
The only question is like, clearly he's not old enough to own a gun, but does he have a gun?
That was my
That's a
biggest
popular
question.
place for
Yeah.
people to go up and shoot
Yeah.
guns.
That-
Yeah, there's shooting
Absolutely.
ranges.
When he rolled down the
Yeah.
window, I thought first I was like, "Oh boy, we're
Right. That's the thing.
we're
So-
about to get a shotgun pointed in our face for a second here." But I'm going to be honest. Matt caught most of what he said. I was really not able to understand him. He wasn't happy with us. I'll just
Yeah.
put it. He was not trying to have a pleasant conversation with us.
Well, I mean, the only part, so I missed part of it too, and I'm
Yeah.
not sure who was he
I
talking
caught
to
the
Alan Plank
threat.
or
Well,
whatever.
so he
Okay.
was talking to
That's-
Alan
that's
for
what
most of the time.
Alan's not somebody you
You
screw with.
don't screw with Alan. Yeah,
I don't
mean,
think he knew that Alan's military. But also, Alan was handling it very well because,
was.
well,
Nice and
Alan
calm.
wasn't taking, like, none of us were taking, I was just
We weren't
kind
taking
of,
it too seriously.
I thought the kid was joking, but he wasn't joking. He was being very serious. He wanted us to be taking him seriously, but we weren't.
He basically said, "You guys need to get off the road."
He threatened to me, which I thought was strange because I hadn't said a word to the kid
Yeah.
yet. And he pointed, like, directly at me as I'm, like, taking a sip of my bottle and checking my phone. And he goes, "Oh God, how do you phrase it?
Because you guys need to get off the road, or I'm gonna
make you get off the road." Basically,
Yeah,
yeah.
like
And like he pointed at me too with his cigarette hand as he did it. Really cool, just a little ash flick there at the same time. Kid was real smooth with it.
Yeah, and
but
that's what I caught too, and I was like, okay, that's not cool. Like, what's going on?
And then
here?
he rolled the window down all the way. And after he made that threat, that was when I thought he was gonna pull a gun.
Yeah, but then it was like, okay, there was like some confusion, like, we're not allowed to be biking on the road kind of thing. Like,
yeah.
He was, and then we were like,
he
okay,
was very adamant about that.
And we were all like, okay, well, let's call the cops. Like, let's do it. Like, and he was like,
well, I was asking him, I was like, would you like us to call the cops and ask if we're allowed to be on the road?
Yeah.
So you got this kid who's probably not even an adult coming up to, I mean, yes, we're cyclists, but we're in shape. And there's what, a half dozen of you guys?
It was a bold move from him. Because also, like Lance said, Nate's also, like, I could understand me and Matt. I wouldn't be, no. Me and Matt, I'd be like, I could mess with these guys all day. But
which Nate was this? Triathlon?
Hansborough, yeah.
Okay.
Strong guy. Yeah. Very strong guy.
Well, in Plank, I would not mess with Plank.
No.
Alan Plank is not somebody I'd be like, yeah, this is the guy I'm going to harass.
I said this to my wife. I was like, I mean, I'm the old one in the group for sure, right? But like the group's like, late 20s, a whole bunch of guys, early 30s or whatever it is. Like, I would not mess with 6 guys that are like 30 years old.
No.
Like, that's not who I would mess with.
Right.
Don't
I'm
mess
15.
with those guys.
Yeah.
I mean, that would be.
He had some liquid courage in him, probably.
That's what we thought too.
So I started calling him on that, and that's I think when he got a little bit angry.
I think so too.
Because I kept on telling him, I was like, "Hey, big guy, you look a little drunk right now. You're a little drunk behind that
wheel. You been drinking, buddy?
Yeah, yeah." And I kept on calling him big guy. I don't think he liked that very much. I was trying to belittle the kid, but like. I mean, I basically told him, I was like, if you don't drive away, we're just going to call the cops now. Like, you need to get along. And he did not. So we called the cops. So
you had to call the cops.
We called the cops.
He was not going to drive away. This was like a 10-minute conversation.
Yeah. So we called the cops and like had his license plate, right? Because we were all just standing there.
Right. Yeah.
He sped off down the wrong side of the road.
Yeah.
He finally just took off.
Yeah. He just took off, yeah.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah.
And then you're looking behind you the whole rest of the ride.
Right.
That was, the nerve-wracking thing was that David had decided to take it easy up Larch. David was still climbing at that point.
He was still coming up.
That was the main reason I thought we needed to call the cops, because I was afraid this kid was going to speed down the road and do something to David.
Right,
so,
right. Who's by himself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Luckily he did not, but yeah.
Yeah. And we saw David right after he like took off. So we were like, okay.
Yeah.
That was scary.
Yeah.
It's creepy.
Yeah. You don't want to have an interaction like that.
Yeah. It's one thing just to get yelled at outside of cars. It's another thing for somebody to stop, take time out of their day, and make a threat towards you. It's like, oh, crap. Like, this is... Yeah. You're kind of out in the middle of nowhere.
I'm used to getting like milkshakes thrown at
Yeah.
me, or people honk their horn, or they roll coal on you. I'm used to that, but not the full-on
conversation. Yeah, the 10-minute discussion.
Well, and then I was thinking like, oh, Evan, wasn't one of the last times I rode with you, we had this weird guy, like, I'm sure it's a couple podcasts back where we talked about some guy like talking about stay off the white line.
Get off the white line. Maybe that was
weird.
so our joke, me and Matt's joke was like, maybe that was it. We were riding on the white line again.
We're on the white
we
line.
just have to get off the white line.
You two are bad juju together.
We are. We are.
I don't think so. I don't know what it is.
And neither of us are aggressive. Like, I think we're some of the least
mellow.
aggressive cyclists you'll ever meet.
Yeah.
Why? People just seem to... It must be our faces.
I don't know.
No GoPro that day?
I did not have a GoPro. I
Maybe
really
it's
wish
the fact
I did.
that we wear triathlon cycling shoes when we cycle.
We had enough time. I pulled my phone out and pressed record. Like, so I have
Plank got it.
Oh,
Plank got it.
Plank was recording too?
Plank was recording
Yeah,
too.
I don't have...
Plank got most of it.
Yeah. I
Did
didn't
you guys share
I
that with the police?
I think Plank was planning on it.
Plank
yeah.
was? Okay.
Okay.
That's good, because my recording is not that good. Like, I have, like, the color of the car, which the make of the car or whatever, but I don't have anything else, so.
Yeah.
Yep.
Unfortunate.
Yep.
But hey, it was a great ride otherwise.
Yeah.
I love climbing in this region.
I rode
next time me and Matt drive together, we're probably going to have another funny story, I'm sure.
Probably. We should probably just do more rides.
Have a guy in a helicopter come down and be like, hey,
off the road.
Get off the white line.
Get off the white line. Oh, yeah. I kept riding a little bit more and climbed, did a whole bunch more climbing with Nate. And then on my way home by myself, DI2 gave out.
Oh, the battery went down.
But here's the great thing about Shimano is just like your front gives out in your back. You're just spinning the rest of the way.
Right.
So I had about an hour to get home with like just the back gears, but it's mostly a climb back home, so it's not too bad. Spun out a lot of times, but that's how it goes. Yeah, and that's just me not paying attention to
I had
recharging.
that happen to me probably a month or two ago.
Yeah.
And we were at Multnomah Falls when it happened. I'm like, this is going to suck. So Chris Hannell was with me. So we pulled his battery out real quick just so I could use his battery's power to put me in the big ring. And I'm like, I'm just going to big ring at home if I can get it back in there, which we were able to do. And then I just used the rear, the only thing that sucks about it is because you lose the auto trim. So if you're in the extremes, you're getting a little bit of rubbing. But at least I wasn't get a 120 cadence trying to get home at 15 miles an hour. So.
I was like super high cadence, and I kept thinking to myself, this is probably good for me because I never do cadence work. Like it's one of those things that we were like, maybe we'll talk about cadence drills and stuff on the podcast. Like after that podcast, whenever we do it, I'll start doing cadence work.
Right.
And when my Di2 gives out.
Let your battery die.
That happened to me last year at the Tour de Blast.
Oh yeah,
there was this huge downhill, and I'm spinning at 150 cadence.
Yeah,
seriously, trying to keep up with the guys because I was in the small ring. But
my Di2 once gave up on me on the trainer. It was terrible. I had to walk all the way home.
Lance, you didn't bike this week, did you?
Oh, I did a little bit of biking this week.
Really?
I did.
I thought you were giving up the bike.
I'm thinking about it at this moment.
The shell of Lance here.
Okay.
So I guess the week started with I did short track with Jake, and Jake took second. I took third, right behind Jake. So
podium.
I actually had a pretty decent race. I mean, I felt good. I wasn't puking. My heart rate was down like 10 beats because.
There you go.
Yeah, I was rolling into shape a little bit better. So, and that was a lot of fun. Those short.
You're just
track
recovering from
races
that
are a blast.
vacation, I think.
That vacation certainly was a blast, but it did damage to my fitness.
Yep.
Note to self: schedule that at a different time next time.
Yes.
Yeah, that needs to be a December trip.
It was scheduled around our anniversary, and that was the whole point. But it just.
Well, why'd you get married then?
I shouldn't have got married in June. Stupid. Anyway, so the big thing for me this week is I did the Oregon Trail Gravel Grinder stage race, and thinking about it right now at this point, it was a phenomenal event. It was super fun. It hurt a lot. It was very difficult. It was about 350 miles, almost 30,000 feet of climbing over 5 days, days. Every day for me was 4 or 5 or 6 hours of racing. Ugh. And, it was... I really want people to want to do things like this because it was like this huge adventure. And there were only about 300 people that did the race because it was a point-to-point gravel stage race. So you'd finish the race and you'd roll into camp, and they would have this great meal for you. You'd have to set up your tent, and people were tent and camping. There would be places to shower, or there'd be a lake or a river you could bathe yourself in. The catering was fantastic. The organization was really good. It just was.
Was it expensive? Because that's a lot of stuff for them to do for you.
Yeah, good. It's because it's like Cycle Oregon, it's all the difficulties of Cycle Oregon, but we're racing as well.
In remote locations.
Yeah. The first 2 days there wasn't even cell service really.
Right.
The first 2 days. So,
what if you don't mind me asking, what was the cost?
I'm trying to remember because I believe I paid $700 to do it, but I signed up like super the first week super early, and I had a discount code because I had done Rebecca's Private Idaho last year, and it was the same promoter, and he says, if you've done this and you want to do this gravel race, we'll give you a code. Late registration, I believe, was as much as $1,200.
Okay.
Yeah.
How much is an Ironman, Matt?
Usually around $700.
Okay. So you're basically paying for an Ironman.
Yeah.
Well, you get 5 days.
5 days, and your camping, and
Exactly.
your meals, and your transportation, and everything kind of taken care of. So.
And you don't have to swim or run.
And you don't have to swim or run. The every day was really difficult. The first day, it was about 75 miles and about 7,000 feet of climbing or something like that. And there was a section where we actually raced on the old Oregon Wagon Road Trail.
Oh, cool.
That is unimproved. Yeah, so there were sections where, great gravel riding, and then we hit this 6-mile section that was supposed to just be unimproved, and it had turned to like moon dust. It was like It was like 6 or 8 inches deep sand for 6 miles. It was so hard. There were sections you had to get off and walk. The sand was so soft. I mean, you prep for a cyclocross race and you're going to go 50 meters through the sand. This was 6 miles of that.
And they knew this.
Well, it wasn't as bad, but then they had all this dry weather, and when it dried out, the sand just got like deep.
Yeah.
And so it made it really difficult.
Did you look at your power profile for those 6 miles?
Oh yeah.
Well, just to move, you're putting up 300 watts.
Yes,
right?
yeah,
To move.
just to keep
To not
moving
fall
forward.
over.
Yeah.
Where was the team car with your fat bike?
Oh my gosh.
Oh yeah, could swap out.
So, yeah, the guy that won that day, Carl Decker, who is a pro from Bend on the Giant Factory off-road team, he was riding 55s, and he rode 55s.
What fork fits for 55s?
He just,
He's got access to things.
Yes, he's got access
got
to
it. Yeah,
things.
it's a specialized
and he
fork.
rode, and you had to kind of ride the same. You had to ride the same bike the whole week.
Oh really? Okay.
Yeah, but
Was that a stipulation of the race?
yeah.
Okay.
If you swap to a different bike, then you wouldn't be in the race. You could just
What about swapping
complete
wheels?
it. You could bring another set of wheels if you wanted, and lots of people did.
Yeah, that makes sense.
What were you riding?
Yeah. I was riding 40s.
40s?
Yeah,
Okay.
Donnelly MSO 40s. I had just put them on. My tires were actually fantastic.
Yeah.
But that first day, I had way too much tire pressure.
Do you remember what you were running?
Yeah, I was running like 40. And
That's too much.
and it was too much. So in the soft sand, I'd literally crashed 3 times. The front wheel would just dig in, and one time I crashed so hard, my handlebar just jammed me right in the thigh, and I have this huge bruise and contusion on my right thigh, where every pedal stroke I took for like the next 2 days, it just hurt so bad. So. And then we got through that part, and there were several people went down. Unfortunately, there were broken collarbones and lots of crashes and
That's
separated
not fun
shoulders.
In the middle of nowhere.
and-
That's not good.
yeah, so there
They
were.
have an ambulance like on the ready.
They had a guy on a motorcycle. You couldn't get an ambulance back
No,
there.
yeah.
So they had
The
a
guy on the gator.
they
Just
had-
throw you back on the gator.
Yeah, they had 2 guys in motorcycles that paroled, or patrolled the course just to make keep people safe and whatnot.
Yeah.
So, but then I got to the gravel section. It was a big, beautiful, bombing downhill gravel section, and too much tire pressure. I totally overcooked a corner and lost my front wheel.
Okay.
So I went down hard again, just Superman sprawled across the gravel. You can see my elbow.
Your face looks okay.
Yeah.
I preserved the moneymaker.
Okay, good.
The moneymaker's
The rest
okay.
of
Because
the
we
rest
would
of
have had
you.
to kick you off the podcast otherwise.
I took all the skin off my leg and my hip and my side and my elbow, and I went down pretty good. But
I'm glad you're okay.
yeah, I really didn't get hurt. I just took skin
Lost
off.
skin, yeah.
Yeah, but the next 5 days it was, it just kind of got harder every day. The hardest day was the 3rd day, and it was 70 miles and 10,000 feet of climbing. And the day started with a 23-mile climb that was 5,000 feet. Off the gate, 5,000 foot climb. It took me like
Good
2
God.
hours.
What mountain were you guys climbing?
We crossed over the Cascade Range from the Bend Sisters area into the Willamette Valley.
That's a beautiful area.
Yeah,
though.
went through part of the Willamette Valley and then crossed back over the Cascade Range and ended up.
So that's what got you 10,000,
Yeah.
basically, over
Well,
the range and back over the range.
No, one stage was over the range, and then you had like a transfer stage,
Yeah.
which was only 3,000 feet, but it was 20 miles of soft sand in a 50-mile stage. The stages ended up being much more difficult than anybody anticipated. They were all really.
Do you think
really
they'll change the
difficult.
course next year, or do you think they'll do?
I think they'll know better what to prepare people for.
How many people actually finished the whole thing out of the 300?
There was less than a dozen people didn't finish. So most everybody.
That's
it was-
impressive.
It was pretty
for
hardy
everybody,
group.
yeah.
But a bunch of people who came to race quit racing.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
I was just thinking like, Lance, I hope you take it easy for the first couple days and just enjoy. And it's just like, man, you can always race the last day.
I feel like it's hard to just like enjoy when you're in deep sand, though. You know,
Yeah, I think
Well,
it's hard to like toe the line and then not
I didn't
race.
really. I'm not a. For me to do a 10-mile climb, that is not my thing.
No.
You know, I ground up the climbs and could get to the top of them. The downhills I loved, of course, but it was just difficult to kind of stay on pace. I kept improving my result every day.
Yeah, that's fun.
As the week went on, you know, I was in the top 50, and then I was in the top 40, and then I was in the top 30, and then, you know, so I improved my, you know, my GC position every day, even though I was not really racing anymore and not trying to go super hard because it was
survive at that point.
Everyone else was. Yeah.
like we finished day 4. I did not want to even start the next day. The last day, it was 75 miles and 5,000 feet of climbing, and I didn't even want to start.
Jeez.
But you know, you just get on your bike and go, and I actually felt pretty good the whole day. So
that's 4 days of built-up fitness
right
there. Yeah.
Right. So go figure.
So you just like rode yourself back into your early season fitness.
A little
days,
bit.
basically.
You know, I'm just completely shot right now. You know, and it was 25 hours of racing. You know,
Jeez.
just in 5 days. 25 hours of racing.
It's like a typical 7-day training week for me, and that's 3 sports.
Yeah.
I can't imagine being on one bicycle for
So
25
it was
hours.
a lot. My bike worked really well. I didn't have mechanicals. I never had a flat tire.
Use your gravel bike?
I did.
What type of bike is that? Is it?
It's a Norco.
Oh, the Norco one.
Yeah, the Norco XR Search. It's a carbon gravel bike. It's in good shape. So
nice. And then
I was just surprised I never had a mechanical, never had a flat. And there were lots of flats and lots of issues out there. But
here's my big question for you:
no flats. That's good.
You gonna do it again next year?
That's a good question.
You're gonna do the Idaho one next year, right?
I'm signed up to do the Idaho one this year.
This year. Oh yeah, I forgot that's
it's
actually
in September.
Yeah,
yeah, it's over Labor Day. So
next year you'll think about it.
I'm gonna have to think about it. I mean, it was in camp was a blast.
Right.
You're rubbing shoulders with all these gravel heroes.
Just do the camp part.
You know, that's right.
Volunteer, be on staff. Yeah.
I was lucky that I had, you know, my wife and our van, and I slept in the van every night, and I'm camping next to, you know, Yuri Housefold and his mom and Josh Berry and Barry Wicks and Carl Decker and, you know, all these like super cool pros, and Allison Tetrick and Casey Armstrong and Sarah Sturm, all these world-class like gravel pros. They were all at this race. Anybody, Colin Strickland, who just won Dirty Kansas.
Strickland, yeah.
He was there.
And also a guy who beat world tour riders there.
Correct.
Like a real bona fide cyclist.
He did not have a good race. Same, we shared some
time.
Did
he not win?
He did not. He
oh yeah, you already said it was
Carl Decker.
No, Decker won. Yeah,
won overall the GC.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Where did he place? Did he have mechanicals or anything?
Well, day one we shared some time in the medical tent together.
Got it. Okay, so he was.
So he went down as well as I did.
Yeah.
So we were swapping scabs.
Yeah. If anybody's looking for some cool YouTube videos too, this year's Kansas was awesome.
Yes.
It was a really. Would you consider doing Dirty Kansas? Is that on your bucket list of rides?
You know, 200 miles.
I know it is.
It's got to be.
Well, I would like to do it, but 200 miles in Kansas heat does not sound.
Oh, it's not a pretty ride.
I just think
I've done that drive now 3 times. I can tell you, I don't know where they're riding, but I would imagine it's nowhere pretty.
I just imagine I've done STP twice, and that's 206 miles, and
that's flat road.
That's flat. I mean, it's 5,000-ish feet of climbing over 206 miles.
Yeah.
That's not that much elevation gain in the grand scheme. It's just like tiny rollers for the entire course.
And you're on road
and I think
tires
about how like tired I am after that, and
you just
we're
beat,
9.5 to 10 hours of ride time. You're beat.
Yeah.
Now layer on top of that riding on gravel roads on a gravel bike, going
longer.
much slower and having to put in a lot more work.
Probably
Hotter.
double the time.
Much hotter.
Yeah,
That just
the winners
hurts.
were 10 hours at Kansas, or like 9:40, I think was what Strickland
I think
did.
it was just barely under 10 hours.
And you know, well, like Taylor Finney finished in 14 hours.
He had some mechanicals
Right.
that day, but his teammates Alex Howes and I forget the other guy
Lachlan
riding.
Morton.
Yeah, and Morton, who
Yeah,
is
talked
a
about him.
really cool story.
Yeah.
Morton is a very very cool
Yeah,
story.
he's probably one of our favorites from our podcast favorite pro rider.
absolutely.
in my opinion.
Yeah,
He's
so
the goofiest of that group. Well, I don't know. There's some goofy guys in that group.
Yeah.
Howes and Finney are both pretty goofy. Yeah.
it'd be pretty cool. It was just really cool to rub elbows with all those people and all the pros, and we're all just eating together and hanging out together, and you've got all night.
Yeah.
Because we're just kind of
This is why endurance sports is incredible. I mean, really think about like how awesome endurance sports are. I've always thought this even with triathlon. It's like you can just be sitting in a meeting next to like Sebastian Kindly. Like,
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, what other like LeBron James doesn't go and just like play basketball
Right.
in Seattle in a gym with just a bunch of guys of like on a weekly basis. Like that just doesn't happen.
Yeah. It was a huge logistical challenge for them to put this on. I'm really impressed, the way it went down. But I'm pretty whooped.
Yeah.
Maybe ask him in like 2 weeks if he'd do it again.
Yeah, we should. And then you have you had a rest day yet? Did you race?
Yesterday was yeah. No, so I have not had a rest day yet. Okay, and I'm gonna go race short track tonight.
Okay, good. You don't need to rest.
I can rest. And the teams keep trying to get me to race the Baker City Classic this weekend, which is the 4-stage road race. And
Oh God.
That'll lead well into our topic for today.
I don't think I'm gonna do it.
Yes, I love it. We should just all do Lance for this topic.
I know. Yeah. Forget the rest
a
of
good
us.
idea.
Okay. We'll come back to that.
We took a little wager, kind of a wager. How many sprinter vans were there?
Oh, that's right.
I forgot about that.
There was about a dozen.
Oh, what did you say, 15?
I thought there'd be 15.
The over-under was 15, wasn't it?
And you thought there'd be like 25.
Yeah.
There was only about a dozen. It logistically that made it hard because you had to have a driver. Somebody had to drive.
True.
And so, but there were.
When you think about the majority of the people doing this race, they probably
You're planning for it for a while.
Yeah.
and you could probably get away and you probably have means and access to nice stuff like that. So I don't know.
There was a bunch of vans there. The Giant Factory team, they had brought a van. So there was 3 or 4 that were there doing that. Barry Wicks had a van. Yuri Hosfeld, they rented a little RV and his mom drove it around.
That's cool.
Very cool.
The Lance Hepler also was in the Sprinter
The
fan
Lance
group.
Hepler was in the Sprinter van group.
Did you get heckled at all?
I did get heckled a little bit. I got called Lance Romance a few times, and I got called out a few times, and I was the only Dialed team member there, which is the first race I've done this year that I didn't have a teammate with me.
That means that Dialed has probably been at every race in the Pacific Northwest. Then.
But it was pretty cool.
Excellent.
But then you start getting recognized by people. I'd roll up on Anna Grace Christensen, who is a local pro for Autolock, and she's like, "Hey Lance, how's it going?" Or it was just
There's so many cool pros in this region too. There really are. Like there's a lot of like off-road cycling pros too, which is pretty cool.
yeah. So
Well, that's a little bit of local news. Do we have any more local news? So our next segment that's somewhat new to our podcast is called the Leadout News, where we kind of talk about local news, regional news, and national news. Not a ton of stuff going on right now. I feel like we're in a little bit of a lull between major, I'd say major races on the world scene.
Yeah.
But are there any more like regional local news that we want to talk about, or?
There's some local news. That,
hit us with it, Jake.
Senate Bill 998. We've talked about that before, but it passed, and it passed pretty overwhelmingly, a 21-8 vote. Where basically cyclists can now treat stop signs and intersections, four-way intersections with flashing red lights as a yield. So they can go through there as long as it's them slowing down to a safe speed. They don't have to come to a full and complete stop. So
they don't have to come to a complete stop, but I was told that they weren't supposed to be on the road. Is that right, Evan?
That's only
from... Oh, no. It's just as long as they're not on the white line.
Oh.
That was it, yeah.
That's just Clark County rednecks saying you can't be
we're talking
on the
about
road.
Oregon. We're not talking about Washington. And you were in Washington, buddy.
My bad.
Stay off that white line.
Washington Larch, not Oregon Larch.
But that's pretty neat. I mean,
that is big.
That is kind of like we get chastised for that a little bit. Even around here locally, if we don't come to a full and complete stop, put a foot down, we'll get yelled at sometimes. And it's just because people don't like cyclists. But usually the safest thing for a cyclist to do is just to slow down and
learn
then
to track stand.
Exactly. Slow down to a safe speed and then progress through the intersection if it's your turn or if it's free and clear for you to do so without having to come to a full complete stop. I think that that's an excellent move, and I hope that other states take note and make the same progress.
I hope so too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say, one bit of caution is like, don't just blow through stop signs, because
don't be that guy.
I was biking, on, I guess it was McGillivray or something like that, and I do this all the time where I kind of come to an almost stop.
You slow way
I
down.
slow way down,
Make
and then
sure
I
it's clear.
Get to the point where you basically have to kind of stand up on the bike to get the bike moving again or whatever it is, and that gives me the chance to like make sure there's no cars that are about to just blow through the sign or whatever. And across the street, you see the other traffic going the other way, and I saw a guy just not even slow down, just fly through a stop sign, a cyclist, and I was just like, okay, I can see why that would anger.
It wasn't Evan, was it?
I don't do that. Don't give me that.
He was going so fast. It could have been. Actually, I don't think the guy was going fast enough to be Evan. But yeah, I almost yelled at him, and then I was like, "What am I doing? I'm not the police."
That's the 40-year-old in you speaking, right?
Yep, absolutely. Yep. Get off my lawn. Any more local news that we want to talk about?
You know what? Not really. I mean, there was another race this weekend, and I'm not going to lie, I haven't even gone to see what the results were.
Yeah.
It's the best of both. And I know that we had some
Oh.
teammates who did it, but I
Yeah.
have no idea how anybody did. I have no idea what the final results were.
We'll
I was
come back
pretty
to
much,
it. Yeah.
I was disconnected while
you
I was
were.
gone camping. So
I looked at those results and I didn't see a whole lot of names that I even recognized.
yeah, it's down in Bend, wasn't it?
It was in Bend, and it was a 60-mile road race, and then you hopped on your mountain bike and did a 24-mile section on the single track.
Okay,
Oh, that's cool.
So
Yeah.
so you could swap bikes in between the two.
Yeah, that's cool.
And I guess Seth Patla, he took third in the Masters Men. Rob Angelo is somebody we've raced against. He took second in the Masters Men. The winner was David Pitts.
Okay.
And Danny Weichel actually went down and did it. He took seventh in the Masters Men.
maybe he'll be tired tonight.
Probably not. He also just got a brand new hardtail bike.
Uh-oh.
And
You guys are
he
in
is
trouble.
like, he's ready to fly on
Yeah.
it. So I heard about that. In the open men, it's names I don't even recognize. Sean Davis, Cody Peterson, and Big Brandt. So I think there must be mostly Bend guys.
Local
Yeah.
Bend guys.
Yeah.
Probably pretty quick.
Yeah.
Does it look like they had good registration there?
No.
No.
Oh
That's a
no,
little
that's
low,
too
huh?
bad.
That's good.
I would expect
That's
that to
not
be
good.
really popular.
I would
So it
expect
wasn't a
most
ton.
Bend races to have good attendance, but maybe it was just because there's been so much racing lately.
I guess 20 in the open men. The Masters had 15.
You do have to have a road bike and a mountain
You
bike
have
to
to have a
compete.
road
So
bike
that,
and
I
a
mean,
mountain
that
bike.
kind of narrows
Yeah,
it.
that narrows
you know.
things down a little bit.
You're
A
taking
little bit,
guys
but
who
still.
dabble in both, but
Yeah.
yeah.
What about international news?
There is some. Even though we're in a little bit of a slight lull period right before the start of the Tour de France on. Correct me if I'm wrong, Jake. July 5th.
I believe so, yes.
The start, yes. So some really big news leading into the race, though. Tommy Dumoulin will not be racing. Chris Froome will not be racing.
Correct.
You could argue those were the two favorites.
Yeah.
There's a good argument to say that those were your two Tour favorites.
Yep.
Why is Dumoulin not racing?
His knee.
Yeah.
He took the chainring to the
he
knee.
did
Yeah.
chainring to the knee. That's
It just hasn't
right.
been healing the way that he wanted to, which is a shame because the guy had really built a ton of fitness through training leading into this Grand Tour season. I think it's been, obviously very disappointing for him. So,
Yeah.
but so this really leaves it open. Which, not that I'm ever excited to see anybody get injured, but with those two guys gone, it could be a really fun tour.
That's what I was
like
thinking.
a really
Exactly.
fun tour. Yeah.
You just don't know. And we're going to get surprised by somebody.
Yeah.
And there's going to be.
Geraint Thomas has crashed recently, as we were talking
Correct.
before.
Yep.
So, you have just on Thomas's team, you have some competition between himself and Bernal, who is,
He just won the Tour de Suisse.
he's fit right now.
Yep.
He's real fit. So, that itself is, it seems like every single year in the Tour you have some team that has a GC contender battle going on between the two.
Mm-hmm.
But outside of that, here's my hot take for the Tour, and we're gonna have more discussions on the Tour.
Yeah, maybe we'll
I
do
think-
like a special episode or something.
I think this is the sneaky year when a Frenchman is going to win the Tour. For the first time since, I'm getting this right, I looked this up before, 1983, Bernard Hinault was the last one. The Badger was the last
Badger.
Frenchman to win the Tour.
It's
Wow.
been a long
1983,
time.
think about it. 1983
That
was
is
the
a long
last time that a hometown guy won the Tour de France.
It's hard to
You
believe.
weren't even born yet, were you?
No, I was not even close to being born yet. I wasn't even ballpark born yet.
I was already like riding bikes, on the the tour course.
You were just barely riding bikes at that point.
I think I had already conquered, some of the major tours, Alpe d'Huez and things like that.
Your backyard hill. That was about it.
Yep. We call it Vaughn 2.
But yeah,
Yep.
so the another triathlon international news very quickly is Jan Frodeno has decided he will not race 70.3 Worlds.
Which I don't think is that big of a deal.
Which is huge for me because now I have a chance to win 73 Worlds. Thank goodness.
You're in.
That
is a joke.
I think that's in Nice, France.
Yes,
this
it
year.
is, and it's going to be in
September.
Yeah. It's. I think it's the same weekend as Santa Cruz 73, but it will be a very, very hilly course. Which I think the reason, in a quote, he had said that the bike course did not favor him. I think the reason he's not doing it is because he's going to focus on Kona, which makes sense. You can't do both.
You couldn't.
You can if you're Daniela Reef, but
that's true. I bet you there'll be a couple people that do both.
Probably.
I would be like Lucy Charles. Probably I would do.
Lucy
that.
Charles.
Do
Well,
both.
I think she may. Yeah.
We'll see. Yeah, that'll be really great to watch for sure. I'm excited to see that race and definitely the World Championships. We'll have to do another triathlon takeover before when it gets close to October timeframe.
No.
And Alistair Brownlee, the two-time gold medalist, will be racing Kona this year as well.
All right,
that's
our next
really
topic
the
for the
biggest
day
news.
is
we can't call him Madison.
He raced in Ireland. Didn't he race in Ireland?
Yes, he did. Cork, Ireland.
Did
won
he get
the race.
second or he got first?
Won.
Okay,
yeah.
All right.
Punch is gonna take it.
I will push forward with the next topic.
Yay!
It's all about the next topic's all triathlon.
Yeah.
Just kidding. So I noticed this like Twitter message, just totally random, and it was kind of like an odd one, and it said, that there's a fair amount of amateur cyclists that train harder than pros, and it kind of you think for a second and you're like, no, and then you're like, oh wait, yeah, maybe I see where they're coming from, and that would be like, amateur cyclists aren't recovering, they just go hard every day and they, train, put in some serious volume and stuff like that. Whereas your pros, will have like this training regimen that's like this day we go hard, recover hard, and just it's slightly different style of training. And it got me thinking, and I was like, what would be interesting is if we went around the circle here of our little group and kind of critiqued each other's training.
And intensely criticized each other.
Yes. And, Evan, what did you call this? Like idiots criticizing other.
No, it was idiots giving advice to idiots.
Idiots giving advice to idiots. I thought that was solid. And so if you guys want to, and feel free, you can skip whoever you want to. It doesn't matter. There's no rules to this. But the person that came to mind, and for me, it was Lance Hepler.
When
I saw that,
up on here, I can feel it.
I have like one word on my thing for Lance.
Well, it's perfect because you just did 350 miles of racing at Race Effort, and I'm just thinking like, Lance pretty much just kind of goes hard all the time. Like there's, and I think you would be the one person that would potentially benefit from that style of like, hey, having a day that's more of a recovery day, or a couple of those days where it's like just a couple of recovery days. Like, yes, hard, whatever it is, 3, maybe 4 times a week, probably 3. And then actually sprinkling in some like recovery days specifically so that you would race better. You are the person that I thought of when I thought of this topic. And then I was like, okay, well then what recommendations would I have for Jake and Evan? And it's like, and Evan is like, sleep.
He's doing it perfectly. No.
Evan is perfect. And I thought, up once. Oh wait, he doesn't sleep. And I wonder if you could be faster or potentially increasing your performance or your collecting more benefits by just maybe kind of like taking in a couple extra hours of sleep a week. And I don't know, but sometimes I'll see on Strava that you'll go out for a run and I'm like, that's starting your run at 10 o'clock or starting your whatever. And so you do some late workouts for sure. And you have to be at the pool at what time? 5
usually
5:15 or something like that. There's only so many hours in the day. So you're cutting in sleep, I think.
Yeah.
Potentially. And you're working 50 hours a week?
It's mostly the work, 50.
So
it's a
your
tough
training load is usually about 25 hours a week?
Usually, yeah. This next block will be about 25.
What would happen if you swapped out 5 hours of that training for 5 hours of actual deep sleep?
I'd probably be faster.
Maybe.
Here's my main problem is that all those little X factors that people talk about, like, really critically looking at your nutrition, quality sleep, feet time up, stuff like that. I'm like a D- at all those X factors. Like I'm bad at it, but for me, the most important thing with training is that I'm still like happy and cultivating other parts of my life.
Yeah.
So I always have to weigh that balance of like, would adding an hour of sleep a night take some time away, maybe from, time with Cassie or time with friends, or time as a PT, which is very important to me. So
no, it's not going to take away from that because you're going to take it out of your training.
That's true. See, and this is how messed up I am with that. Is to me, it'd be like, I'd have to take that away from other things because training's so set in stone in my mind, which it doesn't need to be, but that's how I've set it up in my life.
Well, I mean, I feel like you do need the swim stuff. Like, that's the spot where you need to, put some work in, and you can't not run. It's like, so it is hard. I don't have an answer for you. And what I think is cool about your scenario is that you have a real career, whereas a lot of pros don't necessarily have, they may coach or something on the side or whatever.
I really don't envy those guys, to be completely honest, because I think a lot of people look at that and they're like, oh, those guys are like financially stable, right? No, they're incredibly financially unstable.
Yeah, I've seen this growing up.
And it's a stressful lifestyle. Like, my lifestyle is not actually as stressful as theirs. Because for me, like, I know when my next paycheck's coming.
Yeah. And you know what's worse?
Some of them don't. Yeah.
Is triathlon is finished with you at some point.
Yeah.
And this is what I saw with runners.
Finished with you. Yeah.
I saw this with runners a lot, where they would be really good runners and they would make $20,000 a year, and they'd be pumped, and they'd be making, and they might work a little bit on the side, and they'd be, doing great, and they'd be getting
living
faster.
on somebody else's couch or something like that.
Yeah. And then all of a sudden the sport's kind of done with you, and you have no opportunities afterwards.
Look at Nick Simmons.
Well, he's done some.
So but like he was an 800-meter runner,
great runner,
and Olympic medalist. Did he medal one year? I think, or
really close.
He was close. He went to 2 Olympics.
He was very strong in one of his.
He's won the U.S. championships, a couple of times,
and was always rallying for athlete rights, for them to be able to market themselves or something to be able to make money, because they did nothing.
Yeah,
and.
Nick was an entrepreneur, though,
right?
Which Nick was always going to be okay, because he's a driven businessman and entrepreneur. A lot of these guys are not,
right?
Which is fine. I mean, that's just you take a handful of 20 athletes, one of them is going to be an entrepreneur,
right?
So
he was unique, and he also had more success with his particular running than the guy that's 5th place at running the 800, and he's 5th place at the national level. You'd think those guys would be well taken care of, and they have sponsorship deals, and they small sponsorship deals and things like that. But you're putting your life on pause, career wise, for a number of years. And then you're older, and let's say you're 30 years old, and you're done with this sport that you've put all this time into.
Right.
And there's nothing left.
And what do you do?
You're starting, you're competing with the guys that are fresh out of college trying to get a job.
Yeah.
So that's not ideal.
Right.
But your scenario where you're like,
but without me dodging that, yes, Jake is right. I could probably take away an hour or 2 of training and get more sleep per week.
It might be worth experimenting with, just to see how you feel and check your numbers.
Well, I am so.
Yeah, that's true.
So I have made a change where my build up to Galveston, I was touching 30 hours a couple of those weeks.
Yeah.
And I did not enjoy it. I really did not like training at that time. But this block, I've decided, going into Boulder and all these different races coming up in August, September, I'm capping myself out at 25, 26 hours a week.
Good.
Okay.
So I'm cutting 4 to 5 hours off. Yeah.
I think we'll see. I mean, see if the sleep thing, I think, we talk about recovery on this podcast. We've talked about it before. I think sleep has always been my vote for probably one of the most beneficial recovery tools. So I don't know if you can, you track your sleep pretty well, Lance.
On day 3, after the very difficult day 3, I woke up day 4, and my Whoop strap data said...
What percent were you recovered?
I was 4% recovered. And we had a 50-mile day ahead of us. 4%. And I thought...
You just sent an email to Whoop. That would be the lowest recovery that's ever been recorded on Whoop.
And I actually did pretty well that day.
You would have been better off not sleeping.
I know. And I didn't sleep well that night. It made that much of a difference that I just didn't sleep well that night. I raced that day. We were done by like 1 p.m. I spent the whole rest of the day, if I wasn't eating, I was on my back with my legs up.
Yeah.
And I slept well that night, and I woke up the next day at like 58% recovered.
Okay.
Before the last day. So that's how much of a difference the sleep made.
Yeah.
But yeah, 4% before a stage of a race was
Ouch.
Yeah.
Not ideal.
No.
I wonder if some of the tour guys track stuff like this. Like, You know,
I bet
like
they
how rough. I'm sure
The teams do. I'm sure the teams do.
Yeah, they might use different metrics and things
Well,
like
I know
that. But
Phil Guyman does the Whoop Strap, and
Yep.
he shares his data sometimes. And he just had a really bad crash on a track.
I saw that.
And his recovery numbers have been 1 or 2% because his body's trying to recover, and he's been sharing that, which is crazy.
I remember last year going through my recovery from my surgeries and getting hit by the car, and there were stretches of time, weeks if not months, where I was getting 4, maybe 5 hours of sleep a night, and that was broken sleep. So I'd sleep for 45 minutes to an hour and a half, and then I was up for an hour.
That was the entire first 2 months.
It was awful.
That was you in the chair back. That was the.
I remember that you didn't even make it to the bed for the first 3 months.
Yeah, well, it was
how long did it
5
take
months
you?
before I went back. 5 or 6 months. I have to go back and check my notes, but it was a long time before I actually was able to sleep in bed. And not on a recliner or like propped up on a couch.
Did you buy a recliner specifically? Yeah,
just for that. I had to.
Absolutely.
That was the only way I could get any sleep. And then once I finally got that helped a little bit, but still, like, I was not able to sleep because I was in constant pain.
Yeah.
So that's, the stress on your body from that was just god awful. And then once I finally was able to find some stuff, I started using that stuff called deep sleep. I was actually able to get 5 to 6 hours of rest, like solid hours of rest. That made a huge difference for me. So
I start recovering a lot better.
Right.
Yep.
All right. So I've critiqued Lance and Evan. Jake, I feel like you're a difficult person to critique as far as your training goes, because I do feel like you take it seriously, and I feel like you have a somewhat regimented routine. I think you and I should probably like develop some sort of like yoga routine where we work on flexibility.
Yeah.
And I think it could potentially help both of us a lot.
There's a lot that I need to be doing.
Oh yeah. No doubt. Right. Like we've talked about this before. There's not enough time in the day and something's going to slip. But I do think that, we talked about like your TT stuff or whatever.
Yeah.
That's a tough position for an hour, and I would love to see you do well on a TT bike, because you could crush that thing.
I had no business being out there on that TT bike.
Yeah,
zero
whatever.
business being out
but
there.
You had fun.
Oh yeah,
sort of,
until it wasn't. But yeah.
But also, Jake, I mean, looking back at your medical history, now that I'm trying to put your medical history on blast here, you do have a fusion too, which is limiting that ability for you to even get into that TT position.
It is, but I've been in that position before. I've proven that I can be in that position. I did it on my road bike, yes, but I still have the clip-on bars. I still put the seat in the best possible position I could, and did a 40K at a respectable time.
Yeah.
Without training at all. I did the day before again for about, I don't know, it was like 35 or 40 minutes. I went up with Michael Myers and just made sure that the bike was stable and I was able to hold that position somewhat well. And I did all right. And, I wanted to train up for it this year, but I couldn't. It's just,
you need a little more time.
Yeah.
Here's and also coming into this year, you're coming, back from a big, like, we're not just talking about your spinal fusion now. There's definitely, there were other stabilizer muscles that were still on the comeback and still are.
Yeah. When we're going to talk about like changing people's routines or making suggestions for routines, I'm going to tell myself right now, like, I just need to be on a routine. I'm not on a routine right now. It sucks. I'm used to getting 10 to 12 hours of solid training. I usually have it structured. I usually have my recovery days in there. I have my tempo days. I have my short and long interval phases in there, and got my team right. It's usually there, but it just hasn't been because I've been so stinking busy with work, busy with team stuff, family stuff, and
this
just
winter you were good.
I was, but all of a sudden the sun comes out and there's too much to do. So I don't know. It's hard. Like there's this past weekend I went camping. I'm going camping again next week, and I'm going camping again the weekend after that.
That's awesome.
So that's phenomenal.
Do you know what I think is Jake's thing now is there's as the team has grown in success over the last few years, obviously the responsibilities become more.
Yeah.
That takes a lot of time.
Your kids are now at an age where they're incredibly active.
Right.
They're really coming at that age now where they're doing something every single weekend the entire year.
Yeah.
So it becomes you can still have your structure, just that structure has to change from what you were probably used to over the last 5 to 10 years, which is just a change in structure. Yeah.
Yeah. In years past, it's been nice being able to call up Matt, shoot him a text. Hey Matt, you want to go for an hour and a half, 2 hour lunch ride today?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Those were awesome because it's hard to find that time any other time of the day. But if you can go do that at lunchtime, it works great. But Matt's a busy man. I've gotten super busy, and it's just hey, Matt, you got 45 minutes to go for a ride today,
Right.
and it just that all of a sudden everything gets shrunk down, and you can't be that effective when you're not getting the volume and the training in that you need. So for me, again, I just need to find the time, and then I need to structure it accordingly. And there's still some loose structure to what I'm doing. I usually will go out with an idea of like, right, this is how I feel. This is what's going on this week. And this is roughly what I should be doing this day. It's not going to be near as long as what it should be, but it'll come back in due time. And for me, another thing right now is I'm okay with that. Because I enjoy work. I enjoy the team stuff. I enjoy my kids. I enjoy going camping. And I really enjoy being able to do stuff outside during summer because I got screwed last year. So it's the best time of the year up here. We've talked about this so many times. Yeah. You cannot beat the Pacific Northwest in the summertime. No. It is spectacular. And I had that robbed from me last year. And I'm going to go do everything that sounds fun. And if I'm not as fast at short track, oh well, there's always next year. If I'm, not prepped and ready to go for a cyclocross season, I don't even know if I'm going to be able to do cyclocross this year, let alone have the time or the fitness for it. But that's okay as long as I'm having fun and enjoying myself. So next year I'll get back after it.
I think that's the perfect attitude personally, and that's what I'm hoping to have, that attitude of like, I want to do this stuff that's fun. Yeah. And I don't want to miss anything family wise, right?
Yeah.
Like that's
I'm actually looking forward to you being done with Whistler, Matt. I know that's been this looming thing.
I agree. I agree. Yeah. I'm super looking forward to being done with this season.
That was actually my one point for Matt,
and it is kind of done, but I mean,
is getting through this season and worrying about a healthy return to running next year. Yes. Running being of the three sports the one that probably brings you the most joy. Yep. Is that the one that you would say brings you the most joy?
Yep.
Just getting through this season and realizing that next year's goal is to get back to
that's pretty much what I've come to grips with is the season's over for me, which is fine. Like I'm
sucks because you've been working hard for that though.
Watch Matt go out and
swimming really well. I'm riding really well. Running, Matt, how's your running going? No comment.
No comment. Yeah. No, I mean, I think that's perfect. That's I want to get through this season. I want to get back to running, super slowly, whatever it takes, because that's my game. That's my jam for sure. Yeah. I love running. I don't care if it's fast running. I just want to be able to go do my 3-mile trail run, and you can sneak out for that midday or whenever, and still be able to get a lot of work done and stuff like that too. Yeah. I am enjoying swimming. I'm swimming well, and I love biking, and I want to be able to do our like lunch rides and stuff like that. Yeah. So but I also I feel like another self-criticism of myself would be like, I need that routine if I want to improve. I need to have that structure. So there's some things for sure.
It's just building, I think, that habit like we always talk about. I mean, structure is another word for habit, but that's I think what especially in the endurance world, we all get caught up in this like, okay, well, I'm going to plan out the next 9 months. And sometimes I almost think it's a better idea to let's plan out the next 2 weeks.
Yeah, to where you can develop that
let's
habit.
Just make a habit in 2, especially if you're really starting back at something.
Yeah.
That was these last 2 weeks for me was that I had taken 2 weeks kind of not off entirely, but basically I took a mid-season break and that was the goal. And instead of just having this my original thing was all right, I'm going to drop the next 8 weeks leading to Boulder to a T. It's no, I'm just going to 2 weeks just get back to feeling like you can train again. And I think that's just kind of what you need to do with your run is just get back to where you feel like you can run again.
That's a good point. Yeah. But what happens if you do that too much is you end up doing exactly what I am doing right now.
Yes.
Because you just no routine. Because for during all my triathlon years, it was also during my peak working years and my peak child rearing years. And so I was very structured. And so all my workouts were really structured. What needed to happen, how much needed to happen every week, what happened to happen every day. And I did that for 5 years. So
what was your typical triathlon training week? During that time period, roughly?
It was, roughly 15 hours. Because I was working same 60 hours a week and trying to raise a family and be active in my church. So, it made it difficult to do that. But I did that for so long that now I have all this freedom and I just shut it all down. I just wake up in the morning if I want to go ride, I'm just going to go ride.
Do you ever go and do 10 by 2 minutes?
Yes.
Okay, you do.
Yes.
That was actually my question I had on here was like, does Lance actually have any structure?
That's a good
Because
question.
I always, like, how I picture it, this is how I picture Lance's day is like, you get on the bike and you're like, not sure what direction I want to go. You have a like rough plan and you go and ride, and when you feel good, you just ride fast.
Or if I know there's a segment I want to go after.
Or if you run into somebody who you know.
Right.
Yeah.
Or I'll chase a segment on
Yeah.
Strava or something. I do that a lot.
He's Mr. Fartlek.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I do. I will go out. I know that for cyclocross, the best workouts for cyclocross racing is like 2 by 20 minutes at lactic threshold, or 3 by 15 minutes at lactic threshold. And so if I'm by myself and not riding with other people, I will try to put in like a 20-minute effort.
Like 2 power. what you
Two
kinda look at.
power,
Okay.
yeah, right.
And,
yeah.
and I bet you do recovery days prior to race days.
Yes, I
So
do.
I don't think that you don't, it's not like that I think you never
Yeah.
do recovery days.
But
It's not the complete Wild Wild West.
no,
over there, but yeah.
the issue is that I have not set an A race. I never set an A race.
That was the other thing I wrote. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I didn't, and here I am doing short track, which I want to do well at, but they're 35-minute efforts. And then I'm doing a 5-day, 25-hour gravel stage race. Those are two completely separate
Ends of the spectrum.
ends of the spectrum, and I'm
Yeah.
trying to do both of them.
Well, and also to really peak for a 35-minute effort aerobically. I mean, if you're talking to a runner, you got like 3 months to try. I mean, that's basically your, a little bit slower than your 10K effort.
Right.
Like, how many times does a track guy truly peak for a 10K in a season? Twice?
Twice. Yeah.
Yeah.
Lance is trying to peak on a weekly basis for a
Right.
35-minute effort.
He wants to be sharp from March
No,
until
like-
December.
Right. I just want to be good from
no,
March to
no, like
December.
granted, I think in a cycling year you can peak quite a bit more than a runner or a triathlete can because
Yeah, maybe,
the like musculoskeletal load with running's different. But
Sure.
like still with cycling, you're still talking about a massive load of hours that Lance puts in.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, basically this year I just wanted to have fun on my bike.
Yeah.
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 I just wanted to have fun on my bike. Whatever bike I was riding, whatever race was coming, I was just going to show up and see how it went.
I think you want
Yeah.
to do well in cyclocross.
I do.
And you will, I think. So, I mean, that's part of the fun of it. Is
Yeah, if you had to pick well, I mean, it's like when we had Robert on the show. I mean, you're looking at road racing to Robert is training for
Correct.
cyclocross.
Right.
So it's fair to say Robert's just going to go and have fun
Yeah.
during a road season.
Yeah.
Now, Robert's idea of fun is winning races, but that's competitive. is winning
Robert
at
is
very
competitive.
races.
Now-
yeah.
To speak on Lance's behalf here, there are a lot of cyclists, and the longer I'm here in the greater Portland area, the more people I get to know, I've come to find that everybody is like Lance in the cycling scene. So everybody, not very many people in the cycling world are really going out and saying, this is my A race, and I'm going to train super hard for it. And you know that they're going to show up to races, but they're not going to be showing up to race. Like it's their A race. Like they're not worried about a result. No, almost all of the cyclists show up to all of the races. So we're all kind of in the same boat. We're not all super sharp for one particular race.
Yeah.
We're just kind of like, like 80%, 90%, somewhere in that range in terms of like our recovery and our fitness.
Yeah.
And we do it all year long. So in Lance's defense, it's kind of like the normal.
That's just how well, especially in this region when
there's
you've
so
got
much stinking
Yeah.
racing,
Yeah.
you want
So
to
much
do it
cool
all.
racing.
You want to,
Yeah.
because this isn't like a part of the country where mountain
Yeah.
biking isn't big. Mountain biking is huge here, so you can be racing all 12 months.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's not like now our team is a little bit different. We will support different people. Like I'm perfectly happy to show up to a race knowing that it's not about me. It's about helping Lance or helping Chris or helping Sean or anybody on the team win that race. And I'm perfectly fine with that. Most of the other teams, though, I don't see very many other teams doing that kind of stuff.
No.
So if we could just like take it a step further and like almost tell people, hey, make this your A race. This is going to be your A race, and you, these are your A races,
Right.
and we're all going to support you, and these are the roles that we're going to play.
Ooh, that's
we
interesting.
could seriously dominate that and take more of like the world tour approach. You're going to take your best guns based on the course and go support those people. Man, we could own podiums, but
We definitely could have done that at the state championship.
and there are
this
other
year.
teams out there
Would've
that,
been cool.
that probably could do that as well. I mean, I think it would be fantastic to see more of the teams take that approach.
Yeah.
And maybe that would change how we train, and maybe we could be a little bit faster and sharp. But I don't know.
Make us all better if that happened.
But again, I kind of like your approach to a certain degree, because you go out and ride based on how you feel. And if you go back and you were to track it all, it kind of looks a little bit like a training program. Like, man, I'm feeling flat today. I'm just going to go ride for an hour. Easy.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? That's probably what I would have told you from a coaching perspective. Today's your active recovery ride. You're going to go do this. You're not going to go over these watts, and your heart rate's going to stay suppressed, and you're just going to go out for 45 minutes to an hour. You did that. And it might be a day where, like, man, I feel like Superman today. I'm going to go hard for 20 minutes. You know what? That was fun. I'm going to do it again for, okay, that was going to be your 2 by 20 minute intervals. So we kind of ride according to how we feel. And a lot of times that mirrors up with a coaching plan. It's the person, though, that, to me, it does not rest enough. And so sometimes I want to look across the table at Mr. Evan Price here. And I know that you go hard all the time, but your training blocks are so flippin' long and they're so full of volume. I often wonder, is he getting enough recovery in there?
Yeah.
And then you mirror that, or you lay over that the notion that you're not sleeping very much.
Yeah.
Granted, you're still in your mid to late 20s. And you're still young and still full of testosterone, and you
Probably
don't have
not a good
other
excuse,
obligations.
I think I'm edging up towards the age range where I need to sleep.
I could be completely wrong. I don't know you, and I know that you're very keen on how you feel, but I don't want to see you train yourself into a hole.
Yeah.
And, take longer to come out of that, knowing that had you just done a little bit of active recovery or taken a little less volume for the week and taking that volume and put it into some sleep or some quality time with, like, your girlfriend, or just sitting on the couch with your feet up and vegging out, like, how much is that going to pay out for you? So
I think there's and Matt and Lance can both speak to this too. So I think in the cycling world it's almost more interesting. There's almost a more intelligent approach to how you kind of address training volumes and intensities, just in general, even with people who ride like Lance does. In the triathlon world, there's this, like, constant, like, especially at the pro level, this constant kind of macho look at what is your training volume. I mean, and I can use it by, there's the conversations I hear constantly, even just in, the transition racks with pros, is what was your volume leading into this? And if you're the guy who's like, it's hours. It's an hour per week thing. And it's also how long were you in the pool? How many miles were you running? And for whatever reason, it's weird that I've gotten this stuck in my head that there's certain numbers that if I'm not hitting, I don't feel like I deserve to be a pro, if that makes sense. So to me, it was, I have to be running over 100K a week, which doesn't make any sense. Like,
real quick, though,
yeah.
If you're constantly getting your butt spanked by some dude,
yeah,
and you were asking him what his volume is, and his volume is much more than yours, or it's much different than yours,
yeah,
and he's doing that to everybody, and maybe there's 2 or 3 people that are following that same regimen, and they're constantly spanking, you're like, man, they're at 25 and I'm only at 15, and it's just, I'm getting my butt handed to me every single week. Well, then do that, but you got to ask yourself, like, who's win? What really matters is, did you win? How did you do? How did you perform? If you're putting in 25 hours a week and you're coming in mid-pack all the time, and the guy who's winning is putting in 20 and he's getting quality rest or sleep or time, to himself, start asking yourself, it's not, you got to change that paradigm.
I think it is for me more, it comes down to a mental paradigm. And there are guys who are just training warriors in the triathlon world. They're going to be 5th or 6th place at all these races, and they're not going to win because they train themselves into losing, basically, because there's an insecurity with going into a race, quote unquote, undertrained, quote unquote undertrained, because generally it's not actually undertrained. You just trained an appropriate amount. That is a change in approach I'm making coming into this next training block. But I think for me, it was, you look at guys only talk about what were their biggest volume weeks. So whenever you watch, the one thing I always pointed to is there was I used to follow a lot of the IT old Specialized videos when they used to do a training day with guys. And I remember there was one on Jan Frodeno, and I was looking at his training volume from this video, and it was amazing.
You're like,
and I
ran twice that day in that
I still
video.
reference that to my friends. Like the training day he did, they followed him for 2 days, and it was massive. And in that week, he swam 30K, biked 20 hours, and ran like 110K.
And they show him like doing track workout at night, like finishing off the day. Like, I mean, it's a cool video. You should watch it if you guys.
And I got it into my head at a young age that like that's what it takes. That's exactly what it takes. So like I'll throw in random track workouts that make no sense. I'll like like if I had spring break in college when I was in graduate school, I would train a 40-hour week just out of nowhere, like for no reason outside the fact I was like, well, I guess that's what it takes. Is like you just basically beat yourself down to the ground and hope that you race well.
And I don't want to belittle volume, because I personally believe that high volume training works.
Yeah.
I've seen it work so many times with runners, and that's my background, is like you see this, like high volume does work. People improve when they increase their volume. But I also think it's one of those things where it's like you need to increase volume over years as opposed to, spring break, whatever it is.
Exactly.
But I think that you're doing pretty well on volume. So, some of those pros, they are doing these big weeks and things like that, but they're also taking naps in the middle of the day.
And I also can't,
gets tricky.
And that's the other thing is I think I need to get out of the mindset of comparing myself to what other guys are doing, because I basically maxed out what my schedule can volume wise.
Yep.
Like a 32-hour training week while working 50 hours, that's about as much as I can do.
Yep.
Like there's really not more that I can shove into that. So,
but
knowing that not that didn't work, like I still am proud of what I did in my first 2 races and that I can hang in the middle of a pack. But if I actually want to get better in this sport, I do have to change something, and that can't be
just add volume.
Can't be sitting at 30 hours a week for the rest of my life. Yeah.
And there's so many different like variables to play with, right? Like, because you can adjust intensity. Like, maybe you're only doing 25 hours a week, but it's more intense than some of the 32-hour. And so that, and then, maybe saying like, okay, well, these rest days, and I really focus on rest or whatever it is, and so that my bigger workout days are actually faster,
and, like, actually have quality swims, and like
maybe who knows, or you just set it up to where, so when we were running really really very hard in college, it was you would do a workout on Monday and Thursday, and those other runs were just cake,
just get them done.
And so then like, but like Thursday, it's as hard as you would race. Like you would, throw up in a workout. Like, Lance, you know how it is.
I do know how to throw up in a
You know how to throw up.
race.
So maybe there's some different things you could adjust as far as some of those different variables, and play around with stuff. I guess you have years and years ahead of you to figure all this stuff out.
This is true.
So,
This is true.
How much intensity do you guys really need in your workouts for what you're doing? The half and full Ironman
This
stuff.
is like the greatest question so full is a different, I can really only speak to the half.
The full feels really different than the half.
Yeah, because the half, the way the game is played in the pro field right now is you got all these guys who came from short distance racing up, and they're carrying that style of training into this 73 world now. It used to be the other way around. It was guys who raced fulls would drop down to 73. Now it is the exact opposite direction, and the sport is being pushed to crazy speeds. For example, last year at the World Championship, you had 3 guys run under 110 in a half marathon coming off of a bike where they averaged almost 27 miles an hour for 56 miles.
Yeah.
So you had, world-class level wattages being put out on a bike ride. I really, truly do believe a guy like Jan Frodeno, if you gave him 1-2 years, would be picked up by a professional cycling team. I think if he trained specifically on the bike for a year or two, he would be probably on a continental team in Europe, like pretty quickly. So you're taking these guys who come from the short distance. So using Jan for an example, would be once to twice a week they're on the track doing a hard workout, probably 3 or 4 times a week doing a hard swim workout. A lot of their swim workouts are high quality.
It's a little easier to do it in the pool.
Yeah, and then on the bike, they do a lot of quality work on the bike too. It's the run is usually where they'll try and back off the intensity a little bit.
I wonder if they're doing like 1 speed work and 1 tempo run, or something like that. I wonder if they're doing less.
Yeah.
But,
so Jan used an example that when he was training in Europe, he would do a hills day. He would do a longer tempo day, and then he'd have a super long ride day, and then he'd have a day where he did a group ride. And the group ride, I'm sure, had sprinkled intensity into it. Yeah.
Gotcha. So mixed in terms of like the amount of intensity that you guys are doing. Matt doing a little bit less than Evan, I'm guessing. Maybe.
Oh, I don't do any intensity.
Chasing Nate in the pool is pretty intense.
Well, for selfish reasons, I miss riding with you when we would do the beaches ride.
Oh yeah,
on Monday nights,
super fun.
50 miles and about 12, 14 miles of that was just kind of on the bubble, like going super hard and fast. And I loved it watching you get stronger and faster each week and us chasing each other out there. That was fun. And I just feel like we don't get to do that all that often when you are in training mode
Training
for
mode.
A full Ironman.
Well, that's kind of the plan for tonight, is to go out to do that ride. If everything lines up, I've got a whole bunch of other stuff to do this afternoon, but I think that's part of the plan.
Would you ever consider dropping back down to 73 in upcoming seasons and kind of getting back into that style of riding that Jake was just talking about?
I think for me, everything depends on the run. I think I would love to race 70.3. I think that's a great distance. I would like to travel with you some and do some of these races. Family time is tricky to pull stuff like that off. But
but if you're doing 70.3, aren't you theoretically
Like
more
4
available to your family?
4 weekends a year probably is what you would need for racing.
Gotcha.
But yeah.
well, yeah, it's just the travel away from
Gotcha.
family on the weekend.
But you're right. I mean, like volume wise, yeah, you really, to race 70.3, well, you really don't need to be going on 100.
Maybe I can have you guys debate.
Yeah.
Which one's more boring? Training for a full Ironman or a half Ironman?
Which one's more
I always
boring?
race.
Got to be the
I race
full,
70.3s. I race better at 70.3s when I'm training for a full.
I personally just love 70.3s because I feel like I can still race the thing. Yep. Now this is okay. My opinion really doesn't matter because I have not raced a full. But like to me, I feel like you get onto that bike and your first thing is like, okay, don't try too hard.
Yeah.
On a 73, I know to people who have only done sprint and Olympic distance, that seems like a long race. I can promise you that entire race, my only thought is I need to be going faster right now.
Yeah.
That's your only thought the entire race.
And in a full, you're like, I got to get my calories in. I got my heart rate down a little bit. So
I'm
that I
like
can get my calories
concerned
in.
I'm going to forget to take sips of water in a 73. That's how focused you are on the racing.
Blow up. I'd be going so fast. I'm like, wait a second. I have to do this for how many more hours?
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah, because think about a 112-mile ride. If you're a cyclist, a 112-mile ride, you're still used to sprinkling efforts throughout there. Yeah. Imagine not doing that, like at all.
Right.
So you're just that thing better
going.
be steady. You better be steady.
Yep. Sit on, and I mean that's what I do. I just look at the watts, like just hit this watts. If someone goes past you, who cares?
Lance, you've done both before.
Yeah.
Which one did you prefer, the full or the half?
I liked the half.
Yeah.
You could race it instead of
Exactly.
survive it.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's exactly right.
Exactly. That's the best way to put it. Yeah.
That's exactly right. Yep.
Although, I always want to do more fulls because that's where the glory was, right?
It is, and there's something to that. Because
I've had people ask me if I've done a real triathlon
Right,
before.
right.
Like
Which is
like people
ridiculous.
not like patients of mine who don't know anything about triathlon, which I always love explaining the sport, which is fun to people who don't know the sport.
Right.
But it's funny to me, people who come from endurance sports will ask me like, "Have you done a real triathlon yet?" Be like, "Which one are you talking about?" Oh, the full one. It's like an Ironman. Yeah, no, I've not jumped into that yet. I have not decided that I want to be sore for 2 weeks straight.
I'd get super beat up for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, you are going to hurt yourself bad in an Ironman. I have a feeling.
Oh, I know.
You're going to put yourself in a world of pain.
And that's the thing is, I know that if I want to do an Ironman, I want to know that I can be top 10. Yeah. Like I want to know that I can be competitive in that.
It's just
I'm not there yet. I got a little bit more time.
We'll see. Maybe next year.
I got to race a marathon first.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Yeah.
What would we change about Matt's training program?
This is what I was waiting to get to.
How about you, Evan? What would you change?
So I'm going to talk from like
come up with this topic.
So I'm going to talk from like a physical therapy point of view, talking about tissue healing and looking at you over the next, let's say next spring. Like if we're just taking a time period here, Matt needs basically right after Whistler. So we're going after Whistler. We need to first address like very low, consistent volume of running, low. And that means not doing the weekend 8-miler and getting really disappointed and frustrated when there's pain. Because what we're dealing with is now there's a lot of things like
walk, jog a 2-mile.
Yeah, exactly. Like literally starting with walk, jog sort of volume. I would not tell you, hey, after Whistler, let's not run for a month and build quote unquote strength. I always think that strength building, yoga, flexibility, mobility stuff has to be happening in concordance with a slow increase in volume. The problem with runners like Matt that come from such elite levels of running before is our mind only remembers when we were elite.
Yep.
So to you, an 8-mile run is not a long run.
Right.
But to your tissue right now, that Achilles that we're working with is that's
like a nightmare.
That is a long run right now for that Achilles. So really starting to then focus on, not that I'm saying that Matt is old right now, but Matt is 40.
Old. I'm pretty old.
Plyometrics have to now actually become something that you do. When we're younger, you don't like, yes, I think that plyometrics are very important for young kids, but tendon development at that age is at such a awesome level that a kid just
Very
doing
pliable,
400
yeah.
repeats, there's your plyometrics for the week.
Sure.
Have a kid do a couple 200s. There you go. That's not the case anymore.
Right.
There's got to be like stability training, plyometric training. That tendon, like plyometric training is how you train a tendon. That's, I mean, when we're talking about like a musculotendinous junction, it's not just slow calf raises. You have to now add speed into that component. And if speed isn't added into that component, when it's exposed to speed, it's not going to know what to do with that. So also, I would maybe make a suggestion that we hold off on trail running a little bit for a short period of time, which I know is the worst thing ever. And that's why I would say like probably Heritage Trail would be awesome because there's still some instability in there where you can work on it.
That's what I was going to say.
But when I went on that trail run with you, me and Nate, like I was on a recovery run that day and you were moving and we did a ton of elevation gain. I was like, if this is what Matt is doing on a day, like his usual run, no wonder Achilles killing him. Yeah, like we were literally, there was no straight, we were basically doing single track mountain biking.
I love that stuff.
Yeah, I know you do, but that was...
Yeah, it's beautiful back there.
Yeah, it is. It really is. That was a really nice run.
I typically go probably a little bit slower, but, you know, we're running with our group, so we went a little bit faster.
Yeah. But yeah, that was... those would be like my initial suggestions.
Good suggestions.
Yeah. Because the thing is Matt knows all these things. The problem is that...
Well, you got to practice, you know.
Yeah.
You got to do it.
Yeah.
So I might as well start now because I'm not that worried about Whistler.
Yeah.
So, yep.
Yeah.
You're still going. You're still going to attempt
Still
everything.
going.
What's the plan
I'm not
with
gonna-
the run component?
My actual plan is to call Ironman and ask to switch to the half. instead
Or
of the
just...
full.
maybe you could just bike through transition. They won't catch you. Just keep riding the bike.
That could work.
You may win the whole race in that case.
That would be fun. But yeah, so that's my plan is to this week can do the aqua bike. I've got to switch that race, which I should be able to do that. And then for Ironman, I've just got to call them and see if, because they have a half that's held in conjunction with the full. And so my plan is to basically see if, I may have to walk jog the half distance. So I don't want to do it for a full. I would, I could potentially just, I'd have enough time to do it probably if I swam and biked. I would still have enough time to walk a marathon, but that doesn't sound like that much fun.
5 or 6 hours of just suffering.
Yeah.
When you know you should just call it a day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or, and that's the other thing is like if they won't let me switch races for some reason, which I'd be very surprised if they didn't let me switch. But if they didn't, then I might do that. I might like swim and bike and then just be like, maybe go do a lap or something and quit, somewhere in there or whatever. Like try and collect as much stuff at all the aid stations. Like I paid for this. I'm going to eat it. I paid for that Coca-Cola. I'm going to eat all of this stuff.
Do you want to grab a bunch of like Red Bull for me or something?
Absolutely.
Yeah, could you just...
Yeah, all of them. They're like, here's one Red Bull. I'll be like, no, I want 12 of those.
The case. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I hope that goes all right for you, Matt.
We will see. I'll let you guys know for sure. Report back.
We know the swim and bike are going to be great.
Yeah, they'll be okay.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yep. It's a little sad. Sorry, guys. Bring a little bit of a downer to the podcast.
There's no
It is what
downer
it
there.
is.
That's life.
This
That's
was-
reality.
yeah.
It
You
is.
know, you're
It's part of-
suffering with an issue that is
part of
just
it.
not resolving very quickly.
This
and
was-
that just happens.
It's part of the sport.
Yeah.
This
Yep.
is, I think, the thing that's been cool about this podcast is that I think sometimes you just look at somebody's season and you're like, okay, they did an Ironman, they did 2 70.3s, and one of those was a PR. Good season. There you go.
Yeah, good season.
And you don't think of the 9 months of fill in the blank there.
Right.
No triathlon, no cycling, no running, no swimming season is ever a linear progression, mentally and physically. There's no linear progression there.
Yeah.
And that's, like Jake obviously could not have predicted what was going to happen last year to him. There was no way that was part of the plan. That was not part of the plan.
Yeah. Minus missing the state championship road race, I've done everything that I wanted to do this year. And I'm perfectly happy with that. And I'm in a happy spot right now, still just enjoying summer, still being able to go out and do short track with, little to moderate pain.
Yeah.
And I'm happy with that. And I'm happy to be out riding with my friends on the weekends. I kind of am feeling that pull to get back into like a structured training program, but there's just too many freaking things going on, and being gone on the weekends and having a race on Monday, being busy with work during the week. It's just hard to find the time to allocate to doing that.
Yeah.
And that's fine for right now.
I wonder
I'll switch
if
things
this
up next year.
fall, or this fall or this winter, maybe we can get into something.
Yeah, I'll get back into my normal ways, and
Okay.
I'll hopefully come back, just as strong as I was before I got hit.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Hopefully.
But that's when kids' soccer season starts.
It's all right.
It's kid soccer season all the
you know-
time.
We'll figure it out.
I spent like 6 hours at
Soccer
this
season is
weekend.
literally 11 and a half months long. Yeah.
It's year round for us right now.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah. How many kids do you have in club now?
I have 2, and we had like back-to-back tournaments.
Yeah.
And so I spent all day yesterday at soccer.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I mean,
know-
it was
Ouch.
it was 9 to 3 or something crazy like that.
What do you do
like,
to pass the time? Sorry.
go ahead.
You know what's funny is
Yeah, what do you do?
I love watching the soccer.
Yeah, watching the game. Are
I
you
love
taking
watching the soccer.
pictures or video or?
Are they at the
no.
age where it's fun to watch? Like, are
I
they?
think so, because they're your kids. I mean, it's pretty.
Is it
enjoyable.
more funny to watch or fun to watch?
But no, it's fun to watch. I wouldn't
Okay.
say it's funny. Well, some like my younger kids, it's funny to
Yeah.
watch.
I
But-
love watching like little kids.
But then we
play.
have in between games, and I took them over to an empty field, and we practiced more. And
Right.
I mean, we were all exhausted by the end of that,
Good.
all that soccer stuff.
That's awesome.
But yeah, but yeah, I mean, soccer's not going to slow down. We're going to keep doing soccer and it's going to get worse next year when we start traveling for soccer.
Right.
So I don't know. Yep. Lance, did you feel like you went through and critiqued enough training programs? You're happy with it?
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Evan, you feel comfortable?
I think the coolest thing about this podcast is that topic could have gone 2 different directions.
I mean, I'm crying on the inside.
If you have like a bunch of like coach type A type here, what we would have talked about is like, well, what percentage intervals are you doing usually, and what's your rest interval? And I think what's really cool about this podcast, I think we all kind of do have this very realistic view of your normal human, just in general, doesn't care. Like at the end of the day, like really, does that rest interval matter?
Right.
I mean, what's the difference between 90 seconds and 2 minutes? Like, I mean, are we like we're sitting here talking about like family things, like life things going on. Like that is the much more important thing when you're looking at like, you know, looking at everybody that you train with personally, on your team or whatever. When you're looking at each other's training plans, always remember like everybody's human.
Mm-hmm.
You can come up with an 8-week training plan. It's not going to go that way. There's no way. Has anybody at this table drawn up an 8-week training plan and actually gone exactly where you thought it was going to go?
Works.
No.
It
Jake maybe has gotten close.
But
I
not
feel like Jake's probably gotten the closest of anybody here.
Yeah. One last thing, Mr. Jake Von During, Senior, what do you have for me?
I don't have a whole heck of a lot other than just I want to go out and have fun at short track tonight, and I want my son to do extremely well. By the time, this time next week, he will be 10 years old. He's going to be turning 10, and he won't be listening to this. He will hopefully be riding on a new bike next week, so that'll be kind of neat for him.
Cool.
His bike now, we found out like pretty much in the first race, he's like, Dad, I think my seat's a little bit too low. I'm looking at him like, yeah, it is too low. Come here, let me put it up. And I went and looked at it to go raise it up, and it's like already at the max seat height. I was like, oh crap. So Chris Sarrett came out last week with his 2 kids, and they got a couple new Cannondale bikes a few months back. Anyhow, Barrett jumped on those, and it fit him like a glove. So he's gonna be riding on I think they're 27.5 wheel sets, and it should fit him pretty well, and I really hope that helps him a little bit more out at short track, so it should be fun.
Nice.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Mr. Lance Hepler, any one last things for us?
Big race this next weekend is the Baker City Classic.
Okay.
It's it's like our biggest road stage race here in Oregon for the year, or I guess one of the bigger ones for Obra. And we've got 6 or 7 or 8 teammates.
It might even be more than that. There's a lot of people. They rented a house.
Yes.
And they're all heading down to Baker City to race that stage race. And there's 5 races, correct?
4 races.
Is it 4? I thought there was 5.
There's 4 stages. I'm looking it up. So there's a 71-mile rolling stage. Then there's a individual time trial. There's a crit. And then there's a 70-mile final stage with like 6,000 feet of climbing or something like that.
Gotcha. I thought for some reason there was 2 time trials in there. Like, wasn't there like a flat one and then there was an uphill one? But I guess maybe I'm thinking of something else.
It might be a little different between the P12 field and the rest of the fields. There might be an extra stage in there for the P12 field, but I'm not sure.
Are you going to go?
If you're asking me right now, no.
Thursday.
If you ask me Wednesday morning, I don't know. It just... Honestly, it would seem foolish for me to go do it the way I feel right now, but...
You'll do short track tonight. You'll go home and go to bed, and you'll wake up on Wednesday.
That's right.
You'll wake up on Wednesday.
Probably.
Whoopstrap says I'm 100%. Let's go, baby.
That's enough.
Evan, do you have any one last things for us?
Yeah, there was so the Race Across America team from Ohio.
Oh yeah,
that my mom was crewing on. It unfortunately did not end the way that they had wanted. Eddie Walker, the rider, one of the really, really strong riders on the team, had gotten sick going through Colorado.
Oh,
but guy absolutely gutted himself. He is a awesome dude, former Navy guy, and just really, really cool. So I am sure, I'm not positive, but I'm sure he's going to give it another shot one day. And
wow,
he's the type of rider who absolutely can make it through that type of ride.
That's a crazy race.
But yeah, it is. I know, I've mentioned on the podcast before, we had a guy from Ohio, Joe Lawhorn, who last year
did well.
Did very well
very
in
well
it for his first attempt at it ever. And guy's been doing 24-hour races since. So, Ohio's got a really cool little core group of Race Across America riders. And, so I was talking with my mom on the phone about it after, and
we should go watch some of the sections.
It's like,
we don't have to watch all of it.
It almost sounds like something I'd maybe want to try one day.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I can see you doing that.
There was a point in time where I would have said
Did
the
you
same
ever
thing.
consider that? Yeah.
I
God,
might
it's a
still.
long-
I might
it's a
still.
long- yeah.
Yeah.
Because actually in Kansas,
If it's with the right
that's
group
the
of
thing.
people.
Yeah.
And I don't want to go into it with a race mentality. I just want to go we're going to go ride bikes, knowing
For a long time and
subconsciously
have
my
fun.
body
Yeah.
will race it. If I
Yeah.
just don't go into it with a race mentality, I think
Yeah.
I would have more enjoyment, and I think we ultimately would do better.
I
But
think if there was ever an inkling of some guys on the team wanted to get together and make a couple relay teams, I would love to be a part of it. But I think it's because I know Joe had mentioned to people, it's like Race Across America is a great idea until you're in the middle of Kansas. That's not so fun anymore.
Yeah.
and then you're battling 12 miles an hour into a headwind in Kansas. A couple days into the race.
he got sick in Colorado. Is
Yeah.
that where they threw up the white flag and said we're done? Or
I think it was East Colorado is where
Colorado.
they got over the Rockies. But yeah.
That's a bummer.
Yeah, that's that. I would imagine. I'm not somebody who's done the race, but I would imagine that's got to be one of the hardest sections is getting over the Rockies.
Yeah.
It's an incredible amount of climbing, and you're going from you start in Oceanside. I don't know much about Oceanside, but I'm pretty sure it's 0 feet elevation. I would imagine it's pretty close to 0 feet elevation.
Hard to say.
And in a couple of days, you're at 8,000-9,000 feet of elevation. So not a lot of acclimation time there. Yeah, but I know just it's awesome to hear another team from Ohio that came through. So that would be great next year if there's another team from Ohio that wants to give it a shot. Maybe a team from Washington.
There you go.
Anybody? Yeah.
Could be this table. Could be a Dial podcast group.
We got some guys on the team who do high volume riding, right?
That's a hard no.
So
That's a firm no.
Speaking of relays, we were up in Mount Hood this weekend camping.
Yeah.
And we're driving back, and my wife's telling me all about the Hood to Coast relay that they do. And basically they run from Mount Hood to the coast. And where did they go to? Is it like Astoria? Is that where they end up?
Seaside.
Or Seaside?
Yeah. Seaside.
Okay, so that's 200 miles.
200 miles.
Yeah. Why aren't we doing this on road bikes?
It'd be cool to do it in
Oh, yeah.
conjunction with the race and cheer for people as they're running and stuff like that. Because the corporate groups and some of the elite groups go pretty fast.
Yeah.
So
There are some.
double
There are
back
a couple
and
gravel
stuff.
sections in there.
Dude,
Yeah.
why are we not putting something together? You could have road
you wanna do it,
sections,
like,
you
the
could
week
have some mountain
before?
bike
Yeah.
sections, you could have some gravel sections and make a killer race. And if you're doing it in a relay style, why not make it a little bit longer?
Yeah.
But-
Yeah, because it takes the fast teams like 10, 12 hours to do or something like that.
I don't know.
They're booking. Yeah.
I've done it like
there's some
8
real quick
times. I
teams.
should know.
Hoodie Coast?
Yes.
No, it takes them 2 days.
The fast teams.
To
get
get
fast
Fast
teams.
teams do it in one
Yeah.
day.
In one day?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The 200 miles?
Because
Yeah.
everybody's taking like a 6-mile pull, and if you got guys who are dropping
go
5:20
5:20
pace
yeah.
for that, then yeah.
They're seriously finishing it that fast?
Oh, they're
Yes.
flying. Yeah, they're moving.
I guess I just need to crunch the numbers on it, but one day really, huh?
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
so. I mean,
Wow.
I think they start. I mean, they get there late or whatever, but yeah.
Well,
it's a big
hold
one
on
day.
a second. Are you sure it's that fast? Because I did
They're not-
SCP at a breakneck
they're not
pace.
They're not
and
10 hours. It would be closer to
Not
like
10,
18.
yeah,
like
yeah,
18
20,
probably.
I might be
18 or
off there.
20. Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
Okay.
they're running 20 miles an hour.
I told my wife, I'm like, you guys get your Hood to Coast team, and you guys will run from Hood to Coast, and we'll get my bike team, and we'll go Hood to Coast, back to Hood, and see who does it faster.
Yeah.
Oh,
there
that'd be
you go.
cool. Actually,
That could be a race right
That'd
there.
actually be interesting because it
Yeah.
would be close. All that climbing at the end.
Could be interesting. Yeah.
That means you have to have a running team running pretty close to 6-minute pace for that entire thing, though.
They do. That's
Yeah.
pretty safe for them to go sub-6 the whole way.
Because it's basically an 8-person team, isn't it? You're cycling through.
I don't know.
I remember her telling me about a team last year that
12.
came from Japan, if I'm not mistaken,
Yeah.
and their goal was to break the record. and they were on pace until like pretty damn near close to the end, and somehow they went off course, and they had to backtrack and get back on course, and that cost them. No. I'll find out the exact specifics on that again, but she was telling me that story last year. I'm like, oh, that's heartbreaking.
Dude, I would not want to be the guy that like screwed that up.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, really, it's not his fault. It's probably like the van or the course marshals or who knows what it was. But yeah.
Lance, you want to be in my hood to coast to hood?
Yeah,
team?
I'll do it on a bike. Yep. I'm not running that thing anymore.
There we go. I'll come up with a run team and we'll race you guys. It'll be fun.
Hey, Matt, do you have a last thing?
Yeah, I mean, I'm always posting videos to YouTube. The one that I posted last week was 5 pro channels to watch. It was actually 5 pro triathletes.
I really liked that video.
Did you watch it?
Cool.
Okay.
Yep,
yeah,
I watched
and so hopefully, you can dig in there. Actually, I gave a bonus one, so there ended up being 6 channels.
What was the bonus one?
Sarah Crowley.
Sarah Crowley's, yeah.
Crowley. Okay.
She's got a cool
She has a
channel.
cool channel, and
she's artsy with it too.
Well, it's not her. She's got someone that's really helping her, and it's another group that's called Wits Up, and it's just another like almost kind of a production company that's helping her with her videos. And so the first couple of videos of hers are really good and worth checking out. And so, and then there's a couple other people that help produce videos for some of these pro triathletes, and they're good. And so I went through and I kind of listed a couple of these channels that I think people should check out. And so if you guys want to see that video, you can go.
People commented underneath too with a couple other cool ones that people are looking for more. Harry and Chris was one, which is a really cool one because that's kind of 2 young guys coming up. But
Well, and again, this is the same kind of situation where Harry is a pro triathlete and Chris is kind of more of a filmer guy.
He's his film buddy.
Yep. And so that's working out really well, that partnership. So hopefully that sticks around.
I hope so
because,
too.
at some point I'm worried that like Chris is going to be like, I can go make films somewhere.
That's
like,
exactly I think the direction that's headed.
I can see where that's going to go. But you can check out that. That's my channel is youtube.com/mlegrand, MLEGRAND. Subscribe.
Click that subscribe button.
What's in the hopper for this coming week?
I have another video talking about the 945, just going over initial setup stuff. So that's kind of stuff like if you want to use Garmin Pay, and if you want to, get their music loaded up and stuff like that. Kind of going through the initial setup process. It's not my favorite video because it's kind of boring if you're not really into this watch or whatever. But I'm going to post it just because there's been a lot of interest in that watch. Oh, cool. Like I posted a video just a little while back. It's coming up on like 2,000 views.
Wow.
The video that I posted originally about this one is getting close to like 7,000 views. And so it's kind of like, you know what? This is what people want to see. I'm going to post another video of this. And then I want to talk about like switching out the watch band because I kind of want my green watch band back. So I got to talk to Evan about that. I got to talk to Evan about that because I think he might take my 935. But
you're gonna take the band, don't worry.
Another thing that people should do while they're online is swing on over to iTunes or wherever they're getting their podcasts and rate this podcast.
Yes, please.
Probably somewhere between a 5
and a 5.
And a 5.
Yes.
Somewhere in that range. And
you can maybe drop it down to a 5 if you really wanted to. But
somewhere in that range. But if they want to as well, you have the opportunity to leave like commentary too. And we read that stuff. It's actually really nice to read. Feedback and things like that is definitely appreciated.
I only read the positive feedback.
If there's negative feedback, I think the best place to send that would be the email, which is info@dialedpodcast.com. Is that correct?
Sure.
Okay. Good. I think maybe that email is potentially also another thing that you could do if you're sending us an email would be send us show ideas, because when I'm coming up with show ideas, it ain't pretty.
Oh yeah, we're really running on E if Matt's the one texting us like, I don't know, should we talk about this?
I don't know. Matt came up with the idea. Oh geez. Another place to find us would be on Facebook at Dialed Podcast on Facebook. You can find us.
Yep.
We'll post there occasionally, and sometimes we'll even post pictures to Instagram. Also Dialed Podcast. So hop on over there, give us a follow. We would absolutely love it. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for taking the time to listen to this podcast. Tell your friends about it, and we will see you guys on the next one.